I've never been a guy who believes in fate. I believe in deadlines, spreadsheets, and traffic lights that never turn green when you need them to. My name is Matt Connor, 34, project manager at a mid-sized consulting firm in Denver. My life is predictable in a comfortable sort of way. Coffee at 7:30, work by 8:15, home by 6 o'clock, dinner with my wife Lauren, asleep by 11 o'clock. We'd been married 8 years, and if someone had asked me then, I would have said things were fine. Not perfect, not thrilling, but fine. Then one Tuesday night, I got a text that changed everything. I was driving home, half listening to a podcast, when my phone buzzed in the cup holder. I shouldn't have looked, but traffic was crawling, and the notification preview caught my eye. Dinner's ready, babe. Can't wait to see you. L. I smiled automatically. Lauren rarely used hearts in texts, she said it felt too teenage. Maybe she was in a good mood. But when I stopped at a red light, I noticed the number wasn't hers. I frowned, pulled over near a gas station, and typed back. I think you've got the wrong number. A few seconds later, 3 dots appeared. Then the reply came. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I meant to text my husband, Ryan. Ryan. I read it twice. I only knew one Ryan well, Ryan Blake, my coworker and occasional after-hours partner in stress. We'd worked together for almost 4 years. Late nights, last-minute client calls, the usual trenches. His wife's name, if I remembered right, was Lydia. I typed back. No worries. Hope he enjoys dinner. She didn't respond. And honestly, I didn't think much of it. The next morning, Ryan walked into the office 15 minutes late, wearing a wrinkled shirt and the same half-smile he always wore after a long night. He dropped his bag, grabbed coffee, and sighed dramatically. Didn't sleep much, he said. Had to crash at a buddy's place, deadline stuff. A harmless statement, but it stuck in my mind. His wife had texted him about dinner. He'd supposedly been working late. Coincidences happen. Still, the text kept replaying in my head like a glitching loop. That night, after Lauren went to bed, I pulled up Facebook. I wasn't looking for anything. Just curiosity. I typed Lydia Blake into the search bar. Her profile popped up, private, except for a few public photos. Mostly selfies, a few of her and Ryan, one of their dog. Nothing suspicious. Then I saw a picture from a few months ago, Lydia standing in front of a mirror in a cozy-looking bedroom. She was smiling, holding her phone. But what caught my eye wasn't her, it was the dresser behind her. Sitting on the dresser was a men's watch. Stainless steel, brushed edges, dark face with silver hands. I knew that model. I owned the same one. Or rather, Lauren did. It was the watch I'd given her last Christmas. The engraving on the inside read, "To L, my constant." A private gesture, something only she and I knew about. The photo wasn't high enough quality to confirm it, but my pulse started to hammer anyway. I zoomed in until the image pixelated. It looked identical. I tried to talk myself down. Lots of people own that brand. Lots of watches look alike. Still, I couldn't shake it. The next few days, I noticed patterns I'd never paid attention to before. Lauren started working late. Ryan left early for client visits. Their excuses never overlapped perfectly, but close enough to make me notice. One Friday, the office emptied early after a project delivery. Ryan said he was heading to a networking event downtown. Lauren texted that she had a client dinner at the same time. I told her I might join if I finished up early. She said, "Don't bother, it'll be boring." By 7, I was parked outside a restaurant near the river. It was one of those modern places with exposed brick and dim lighting. Through the window, I saw her, Lauren, wearing a green dress I'd never seen before, laughing. And across from her, leaning forward with that easy grin, was Ryan. They weren't holding hands. They weren't kissing. But the way they looked at each other, the quiet comfort of people with shared secrets, told me everything I didn't want to know. I sat there in my car for a long time, the air thick with disbelief. It's strange how betrayal doesn't hit like a gunshot. It seeps in, slow and quiet, until suddenly everything you trusted feels contaminated. I drove home on autopilot. Lauren came in around midnight, smelling faintly of wine and perfume. She kissed my cheek and apologized for the long dinner. I nodded, pretending to be half asleep. I didn't ask questions. Not yet. The next day, she was cheerful, humming as she made coffee. Ryan texted me later that morning about a new client brief, like nothing had happened. I answered as usual. But I started watching. Every message, every schedule, every vague explanation, they all started to form a pattern. And I realized that whatever was happening between them, it wasn't just a one-time mistake. It was deliberate. Ongoing. A week later, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife, I got another message from an unknown number. "I'm done waiting. He's not home again. Is he with her? The name attached was Lydia Blake. I stared at the screen, my pulse roaring in my ears. She had no idea who I was. No idea her message had landed in the lap of someone just as deceived. For a long moment, I didn't know what to do. Then I typed back, carefully. Maybe we should talk. We met at a cafe 2 blocks from my office, a quiet corner place that smelled like roasted beans and wet pavement. I recognized her the moment she walked in, Lydia Blake, 30ish, sharp features, eyes that looked like they hadn't rested in weeks. She wore a red scarf even though it was warm out, and her hands trembled slightly when she pulled out her phone. "Matt?" she asked. I nodded. "Lydia." For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. There was something almost absurd about it, two strangers brought together by their spouses' lies, sitting across from each other like reluctant allies. She slid her phone across the table. On the screen was a string of messages from Ryan. Excuses. Apologies. Promises. The kind of recycled lies that smell too much like routine. Client dinner again. Don't wait up. Hotel meeting tomorrow morning. You know I love you, right? I swallowed hard. They were eerily similar to the ones I'd seen on my wife's phone over the years, different words, same rhythm. Lydia looked up. You said you saw them? I nodded slowly. At a restaurant. Last Friday. Her lips pressed into a thin line. So it's real. There was no satisfaction in confirmation. Just a cold stillness between us, as if the air itself had been stripped of oxygen. She leaned back. How long do you think it's been going on? I don't know, I said. But I think it's not new. Lydia looked away toward the window. Outside, people walked by laughing, living ordinary lives untouched by the quiet kind of pain that eats you from the inside. Then she said something I didn't expect. I don't want to scream, or throw things, or beg. I want them to know what they've done. I want them to see it. Her voice didn't rise, but the conviction in it chilled me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the dinner, the texts, the look on Lauren's face when she lied to me so easily. I started paying closer attention. Her perfume changed, something floral instead of her usual vanilla. Her phone, once left anywhere, was now always face down. When I asked about her week, she gave answers that were too rehearsed. And every time Ryan's name came up at work, my stomach turned. The next Friday, Ryan said he had to visit a client in Boulder. Lauren, coincidentally, said she was meeting an old friend there for lunch. So I drove to Boulder. I told no one. It wasn't hard to find them. The hotel parking lot was full, but their car, Ryan's black SUV, was easy to spot. I waited across the street, heart pounding, until they came out. Lauren's hair was slightly messy, her lipstick faintly smudged. Ryan touched her arm as they laughed about something. They looked like a couple in love. Except they weren't mine. When I finally drove home, I felt hollow. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I needed more than anger, I needed proof. Over the next few days, Lydia and I became unlikely partners in quiet surveillance. She handled the emotional chaos better than I did, organized, methodical. She made lists of Ryan's business trips, compared them with Lauren's client meetings. The overlaps were almost perfect. Then one morning she sent me an email. The subject line read, "You'll want to see this." It was a screenshot from Ryan's Google account. A shared Gmail login, the same one he'd once used for side projects. But in this account's draft folder were messages written to Lauren. Not sent, but saved as drafts, a trick to hide them. They wrote to each other about where to meet, what excuses to use, even which lies would sound more believable. If Matt asks, say it's the PR client again. Lydia thinks I'm traveling next week, we're good. Miss you already. I read the lines until they blurred. Lydia and I met again that evening, this time in her car. She was quiet, staring at the glowing phone screen. I knew he was cheating, she said softly. I just didn't know it was with someone we both knew. I know. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence was different this time, not shock, but calculation. Lydia finally turned to me. We could tell them. Confront them separately. But that's what they'd expect. They'd twist it, make it emotional, maybe even turn us against each other. I looked at her. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, she said, that if they've been lying to us this long, maybe we should let them lie to each other for a while longer. Just long enough to make them think they've gotten away with it. Her tone was calm, almost detached. The kind of calm that comes right before a storm. That night, I watched Lauren sleep beside me. Her breathing was steady, peaceful, the kind of peace that doesn't belong to guilty people, and yet she was one. Her phone buzzed once on the nightstand. I turned my head just enough to see the screen light up with a preview. From Ryan Blake, miss you already. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. The next morning, I texted Lydia. You're right. Let's not confront them. Not yet. We started planning. Nothing dramatic. No shouting, no revenge fantasies. Just a slow, quiet reveal that would leave no doubt, no escape. Lydia had an idea, the perfect stage. Ryan's birthday was coming up in 3 weeks, and Lauren had volunteered to help organize a surprise party at our office. She'd told me all about it, not realizing I knew who the guest of honor really was to her. The plan was simple: everyone gathered, a presentation, cake, photos. But instead of a slideshow of memories, we'd show something else entirely. That evening, I called Lydia. "We'll need proof they can't deny." Her voice was steady. "Then let's give them exactly that." We began collecting everything: texts, photos, receipts, the draft emails. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together into something undeniable. I didn't feel proud. I didn't even feel angry anymore. Just focused. By the time the night of the party drew near, Lydia and I knew exactly what we were going to do. And as twisted as it sounds, I found a strange comfort in the partnership we'd built. Not friendship. Not attraction. Just two people bound by betrayal and driven by the same quiet need for truth. Ryan and Lauren had written the story. We were just preparing the ending. The days leading up to the party were an exercise in acting. Every conversation, every glance, every shared laugh at the office or at home was a performance. Lauren would kiss me goodbye in the morning, smile, and tell me to wish Ryan luck on his presentation. I'd nod, return the kiss, and pretend I wasn't counting the hours until everything collapsed. Lydia and I spoke only through encrypted messages. She'd gone from fragile to focused, like betrayal had burned away everything soft and left only precision. Her plan was simple, brilliant, and merciless. Ryan's surprise party would be held in the company's main conference room on a Friday evening, after hours. Lauren was on the planning committee. She thought she'd convinced me to help with the technical setup, something special for Ryan's slideshow. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was excited, even radiant that week, which almost made it worse. I caught myself watching her sometimes, trying to see if there was even a flicker of guilt behind her easy smile. But there was nothing. Just charm and confidence, the same traits that had drawn me to her in the first place. The night before the event, Lydia and I met one last time. We sat in her car in the dim glow of a street lamp outside her house. She handed me a small flash drive. "This has everything," she said. "Messages, photos, emails, screenshots. They won't be able to talk their way out of it." I turned it over in my hand. "Are you sure you want to do it this way?" "I'm sure," she said quietly. "They wanted to keep things secret. Let's show them what secrets really look like." She gave me a faint smile, then added, "After tomorrow, we don't have to see each other again. We both move on." I nodded, though the idea left an odd emptiness in my chest. Maybe because Lydia was the only person in the world who truly understood what it felt like to live in this suspended state, half betrayal, half control. The next morning, the office buzzed with forced cheerfulness. Balloons. Streamers. A "Happy Birthday, Ryan" banner crookedly taped to the wall. I spent most of the day pretending to troubleshoot the projector setup, but in reality, I was loading the presentation, our presentation, into the system and checking the sequence 3 times. At 5:30, people started gathering. Lauren flitted between the kitchen and the conference room, carrying snacks and whispering into her phone. Ryan arrived late, as usual, with that easy grin that made everyone laugh. He slapped me on the shoulder. "Hey man, thanks for helping with this. Didn't think you were the party planning type." I smiled back. "Anything for the team." He chuckled. "You're a good guy, Matt." For a second, I almost laughed, a real, bitter laugh, at the absurdity of it. He had no idea that the man he was thanking had spent weeks assembling the evidence of his own betrayal. Lauren dimmed the lights. "Everyone, gather around. Matt's got a little surprise presentation before the cake." The room quieted. The projector hummed to life. I could feel my pulse in my throat. The first slide appeared, the company logo, a cheerful tune playing. Then the second, Ryan with coworkers, smiling at a retreat. Laughter rippled through the room. He grinned, clearly enjoying the attention. Then came the third slide. A screenshot. "Can't wait to see you tonight. He's asleep already. L." The laughter stopped instantly. A few confused murmurs rose. I clicked again. Another slide. A selfie of Ryan and Lauren, taken in what was unmistakably a hotel room. Her hair wet, his shirt half-buttoned. The air shifted. The room fell silent except for the hum of the projector. I could see Ryan's face drain of color. Lauren froze, her hand still halfway to her mouth. Another slide, messages, timestamps, receipts. Someone near the back whispered, "Oh my God." Lauren stepped forward, voice trembling. "Matt, turn it off. This isn't funny." "It's not supposed to be," I said. The next slide appeared, a photo of Ryan's car in the Boulder Hotel parking lot, side by side with a receipt from the same date and time, Lauren's name clearly visible. Lauren's knees buckled slightly. Ryan tried to speak but no sound came out. That's when Lydia walked in. She wasn't supposed to arrive until later, but her timing was perfect, almost cinematic. She stepped into the doorway, calm and poised, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "Happy birthday, honey," she said, her voice smooth but cutting. "You and Lauren make quite the team." Gasps echoed through the room. Ryan turned toward her, pale and sweating. "Lydia, this isn't." But she cut him off. "Save it. You've said enough already." No one moved. Even the office air felt frozen. Lauren backed toward the wall, shaking her head. "Matt, please. Let's talk about this." "Not here." I looked at her, and for the first time in weeks, I felt nothing. Not love. Not hate. Just emptiness. "Where then?" I asked quietly. "At the hotel? At one of your client dinners?" She covered her mouth and started to cry, but the sound barely reached me. Lydia placed the glasses down on a nearby desk and turned to the room. "Sorry, everyone. The rest of the party's cancelled. Seems the guest of honor's already been celebrating elsewhere." And with that, she walked out. I followed her into the hallway as murmurs exploded behind us. Outside, she stopped and turned. "You did well," she said softly. "You too." We stood there in silence for a long moment, the muffled chaos still echoing from inside. Then Lydia exhaled. "I thought I'd feel better." "Do you?" I asked. She shook her head. "Not really. But at least it's done." We exchanged a small nod, an unspoken agreement that this chapter, however painful, was over. Then she walked away, her red scarf trailing behind her like a closing curtain. I stood there for a long time, alone, until the building lights flicked off one by one. Inside, the truth was no longer hidden. And that, somehow, was enough. The Monday after the party, the office was silent. The kind of silence that follows a storm, heavy, uneasy, thick with aftermath. Ryan didn't show up. Neither did Lauren. HR sent out a vague memo about unprofessional conduct and ongoing investigations. Nobody mentioned names, but everyone already knew. That night had spread through the office like wildfire. I could feel the stares when I walked down the hallway, some sympathetic, others curious, all uncomfortable. I didn't care. For the first time in weeks, I felt strangely calm. That weekend, Lauren moved out. She didn't ask me to help, she just packed quietly while I sat in the kitchen, drinking coffee and staring at the wall. Every sound, the rustle of boxes, the clink of glass, the closing of drawers, felt like a punctuation mark at the end of something that had already died long before. When she was done, she stood in the doorway, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Matt," she said, "I know you hate me, but please believe I didn't mean to hurt you." I looked up at her. "You didn't just hurt me, Lauren. You erased us." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "I never wanted it to go that far. Ryan and I." I cut her off. Don't insult both of us with excuses." For a moment, she looked like she wanted to cry, but instead she just nodded, whispered "I'm sorry," and walked out. The door shut softly, but the silence it left behind was deafening. In the following days, I threw myself into work, not because I cared about it, but because it filled the hours. Ryan eventually returned to the office, head down, stripped of his usual arrogance. HR must have decided not to fire him outright, too much paperwork, too much publicity. We didn't speak. Not once. It was Lydia who reached out first. She called me a week later. Her voice was calm, lighter somehow. "Just wanted to check in," she said. "See how you're holding up." I hesitated, then admitted, "I don't really know." "That makes 2 of us," she said with a small laugh. "But at least it's over." We met once more, not out of necessity but closure. Same cafe as before. She looked different, relaxed, freer. Divorce papers in motion, house for sale. She was planning to move to Santa Fe to start over. "You?" she asked. "I haven't decided," I said. "Everything feels like a blank page. And I'm not sure what to write yet." She nodded. "Maybe that's the point. You get to decide what goes on at this time." Before she left, she handed me a small envelope. "Something I found cleaning out the house," she said. "You'll understand." Inside was a photo, taken years ago at a company Christmas party. Ryan and I, grinning, arms slung over each other's shoulders. Behind us, Lauren and Lydia were talking near the buffet table, smiling. None of us knew then what we'd become to each other. On the back of the photo, Lydia had written, "We were all pretending long before we started lying." It stayed on my desk for a long time. Weeks passed. The gossip at work died down. Ryan eventually quit. Rumor had it he left town with what was left of his dignity. Lauren's things disappeared from our joint accounts, our shared digital traces reduced to fragments. Divorce proceedings went smoothly, neither of us had the energy to fight. And yet, every now and then, I'd get a message from an unknown number. Not from her, but from Lydia. Never words, just a photo of a sunrise, or a quiet street, or a new coffee mug. I never replied, but I always looked. Then, one afternoon in early spring, a small package arrived at my office. No return address. Inside was a keychain, stainless steel, engraved with the words, "Honesty is expensive. L." It wasn't sentimental. It wasn't romantic. It was a statement, clean and final. I put it on my car keys. That evening, I drove out to the edge of the city, to a viewpoint overlooking the skyline. The sun was sinking behind the mountains, casting long orange streaks over the glass buildings. The same skyline I'd looked at 1,000 times, but it felt different now, emptier, quieter, maybe even honest. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to think back to everything that had happened. The text, the meetings, the plan, the moment the projector flickered to life. There was no satisfaction in remembering it, no thrill of revenge, no sense of victory. Just clarity. People talk about betrayal like it's a single event, a knife between the ribs. But it's slower than that. It's erosion. A lie here, a missing hour there, the gentle wearing away of trust until one day you look up and realize there's nothing left standing. What Lydia and I did that night wasn't about revenge. It was about ending the erosion. Tearing down what was left before it collapsed on its own. And as cruel as it sounds, I think that was the kindest thing we could have done. Lauren and Ryan had spent months weaving a world of half-truths. We just turned on the lights. I sat there until the city went dark, the hum of traffic below fading into the distance. When I finally started the car, I glanced once more at the keychain. It caught the last of the sunlight, the engraving glinting like a final truth. Maybe Lydia was right. Honesty is expensive. But silence costs even more. I drove home, not sure what waited ahead, but certain of one thing: whatever I built next, it would be real. No more pretending. No more lies. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough.